Welcome into the Bonesville Pregame Podcast. Al Myatt joined by Kevin Monroe. Kevin, of course, an outstanding defensive back in his playing days at East Carolina and an integral part of the Pirate Radio Network as the Pirates get ready to host Southern Methodist on Thursday night. That will be shown nationally on ESPN. And the Pirates have had a bye week since a 24-17 loss at Rice. Kevin, you look at the statistics from the Rice game, and East Carolina had more first downs. That was 25 to 14, more total yards, 391 to 277, but it did not produce a win in the American Athletic Conference opener.
Yeah, and you add to that Rice took an L to Connecticut recently. It makes you think, wow, the Pirates really let one get away from them. It's one of those situations where the Pirates just didn't take advantage of opportunities, were able to move the ball at times, but couldn't take advantage of situations where they were either in scoring position or should have been in scoring position on offense. Still some drops from the receiver position, still some misreads at quarterback. Defensively, I think the Pirates play well at times. They're able to, contain the run. They're able to play pretty well in the pass, but then they just let, plays kind of get away from them. And I think Rice was a team that they could have and should have beaten. And this 2023 East Carolina team hasn't yet learned how to win. And, they have, 50 some odd new players. And so you can look back and say, okay, they have 2 straight winning seasons, 2 straight bowl berths. But a lot of these guys are different. A lot of these guys weren't starting last year. A lot of these guys weren't in this rotation. And so it's almost like Coach Houston and team are teaching a whole new array of players how to win. And so to let that game get away from them the way that they did was disappointing. And you hope that they have learned something from it, because that was a very winnable game.
Kevin, how much responsibility does the offensive line take? You mentioned, of course, new players, and you're playing with some inexperienced players, some transfers up front. You got to win the battle in the trenches to win the game. And Avery Jones, Nishad Strother at Auburn and Oregon, respectively, from last year's team. So what kind of factor do you see it with the offensive line?
Well, without a doubt, it's a factor. Maybe not so much if you have an experienced quarterback that knows how to move around the pocket well and make good decisions. You have running backs that had a ton of carries that, know what to expect from their offensive line, know when to cut, when not to cut. But this is brand new quarterback, 2 brand new quarterbacks essentially, and then you have a running back in Harris that didn't play most of last season because of an injury, and so you've got some new guys back there trying to run the ball and get used to this offensive line. So I would say it's a big deal. It tends to be in my keys to the game each week about controlling the line of scrimmage and keeping people off the quarterback and opening up holes from the running back. And so, yeah, it's certainly not a small issue to have 2 starters to transfer away. You had one guy that played a ton of ball last year that's still here but isn't playing as much on the offensive line. So just not a whole lot of continuity in that offensive line for those 5 guys.
Kevin, the Pirates have had essentially a bye week going into this Thursday night game. And what kind of effect could that possibly have? You've had an opportunity maybe to address some issues and clean some things up.
No question. Good coaches are always better after bye weeks because they just have that extra time, those extra days to put into the program, to go back to basics, basically the fundamentals, work on blocking and tackling, assignment football. When the Pirates are getting beat, whether it be in the secondary or whether it's a long run by an opponent, it's usually a missed assignment, missed alignment. Someone wasn't where they were supposed to be. Someone didn't make the play they were supposed to make. And so during bye weeks, you have the opportunity to go back over a lot of those things and clean that up. And so I expect to see a much better team, come Thursday night for East Carolina. Certainly they're still playing a quality opponent that's favored over them, even though the Pirates are at home. And so it won't be easy by any stretch of the imagination. But I assume that a lot of things have gotten fixed, even in coaching. You've made some adjustments. You realize, hey, some things we've been trying to do aren't working. Let's cut bait from that and try to do something different. And so you come up with a lot of different things after a bye week.
And of course, national television, that can be an inspiration as well, I think.
Yeah, I can remember, the Thursday night games that I played in. I remember one vividly. We played a Thursday night game against Cincinnati in 97 or 98. They came to Greenville. It was just so exciting. It was lots of emotion. They came out in their all black uniforms, and it was an exciting time period. And back then there weren't Tuesday night games and Friday night games, and it was just Saturday and Thursday, and that was pretty much it for college football. And so you got that Thursday night ESPN game, you were doing something good, and so we were always excited to play in those games. So yeah, it'll bring added excitement to Greenville. The students should be out there in full force. Sometimes it gets a little bit late for the kids, the younger kids that have school, and so sometimes you don't get those fans out. But it should be a nice crowd, and it's one of those games you get up for as a player.
SMU comes in at 3-2. Their losses are to Oklahoma and Texas Christian. Oklahoma's unbeaten, and TCU played for the national championship last year. So quality opponents. ECU has played a good caliber of competition as well. You start out with Michigan, which is number 2 at the present time, Appalachian, Marshall, and Rice. They've been kind of up and down, but they did beat Houston this year. And so matchup of teams that have faced good competition. SMU comes in with the quarterback, Preston Stone, 11 TDs, 5 interceptions, a good running back in Jalen Knighton. And so they've been averaging about 33 points a game, allowing about 18, the Mustangs.
Yeah, this SMU team has scored on everybody. As you mentioned, they did take losses to Oklahoma and TCU, but they were within a couple of touchdowns in each of those games. And so this is an offense. You mentioned Preston Stone. There's 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, about 240 yards passing per game. He finds his guys. They make plays through the air as well as Knighton on the ground in the run game. And so they know how to move the football, move the chains, get points against anybody. And so, if you watch some of the Oklahoma-Texas game, a while back, how good of an offense Oklahoma has, but also how good a defense they have. And this SMU offense was able to score on them a few times. And so you start to think, both offensively and defensively, East Carolina's going to come ready to play, because this is an SMU team that is battle tested, changing conferences here coming up. And so they've got a lot riding on every game they play this year, especially TV games. And so it's going to be interesting how East Carolina approaches them, because they, up front, defensively, they get after it. They've got 17 sacks, 38 tackles for a loss. So they are brutal. They will get to the quarterback and they will make the quarterback pay. And so you've got to be quick in your read and your decision making. You've got to get the ball out in under 3 seconds, somewhere in that 1.8 to 2.1. You hear coaches always kind of talk about that scenario, getting the ball out. And so for new quarterbacks, that's a lot. That's a lot to have to worry about. Guys breathing down your neck and making your reads and getting the ball out. So East Carolina will have to be sound in the passing game. It's a good thing they had that bye week to kind of prepare for this. But also, establishing that run. You get that run going, it slows down that pass rush. If you got a chance to watch, the 49ers play the Cowboys, the way they were able to attack with CMC at running back, it just nullified that pass rush, excuse me, that the Cowboys usually deploy. So if you can run the football, you can slow down a good pass rush. So that's what the Pirates are going to have to do early on, is establish the run.
Kevin, at 0-1 in the AAC, this game is essential to be in contention for the conference championship. The Pirates need a win to stay in contention.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early in the season. This is, I guess, conference game number 3. So you still have an opportunity to be in the mix. Nobody's probably going to go undefeated through the conference. There'll be some 1-loss, 2-loss teams there, deciding the championship. And so you just got to hang around and stay in it. There won't be a game left this year that they can't at least compete in. There's no more Michigans on the schedule. And so knowing that they have to come in each game ready to play, each game pumped up, knowing that the conference games are super important, it's kind of the next level, right? You go from non-conference, see what you can do there, to in-conference, and then you get to postseason aspirations. So it breaks the season down into three different buckets there. And so they're in their conference play now. It hasn't gone the way they would like for it to have gone. And so, yeah, it's exciting. And I guess maybe this is just the second conference game. Either way, getting into conference season and being able to effectively play the game that you want to play and get victories is why coaches get hired and fired. And so we've seen Coach Houston, in the way he's handled the conference thus far over the last couple of years. The Pirates have done pretty well. I don't expect anything different this year. It's good to have that good competition against teams like Marshall and Michigan and Appalachian State, kind of in that pre-conference season to get those guys battle tested. So Rice was the first opportunity really to get that first conference win. Didn't work out. They were in the game, and now this is their next opportunity.
Well, let's talk about that Bonesville tradition. Kevin's keys to the game.
Yeah, I just briefly mentioned, how stellar this defensive line is and linebackers, the front seven for SMU. So that's going to be first and foremost on the keys to the game. They've got to keep Flynn, Garcia, whoever's back there upright. They've got to, keep them, keep that line of scrimmage clear so they can run the football, but also keep them from getting sacks. The defensive secondary for East Carolina has to be more consistent. This is a quarterback in Stone that can beat you with his arm, 240 yards a game that we've talked about. So make sure that in the secondary, they're not missing assignments. They're making plays downfield, but also up front, getting after that quarterback. The Pirates have not been great at getting sacks this year, not been great on putting pressure on the quarterback. So they've got to be better at putting pressure on Stone and making him make some mistakes so they can get some interceptions. So I think that's kind of the key, keeping our quarterbacks upright, finding a way to make that happen, putting pressure on their quarterback, but also being good in the back end for ECU. Those are the keys for this week.
Pirates and the Ponies, Thursday night, Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium on ESPN. You can hear Kevin on the Pirate Radio Network offering his insights. Kevin, as always, great visiting with you on the Bonesville Pregame Podcast, and we'll look forward to next week.
Appreciate it, Al.